Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for geekvibesnation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup, but hold the phone. As you might have noticed, we have a very special guest, and we're doing something a little bit special for Valentine's Day. So we are talking alternative Valentine's Day movies, but we're not alone. We have our wonderful editor. He's also a writer for GVN, Andre Couture.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm one of the people who watches the Video Attic before anyone else gets a chance to. As glamorous as that sounds. And lately every once in a while I'll throw in something just to annoy them. Particularly my long-running joke with Dillon, still not getting the pronunciation for Maigret.
Sorry.
So that's for you. It's okay. French is hard. The whole thing is you're not supposed to pronounce 90% of the letters that's written. I've always said the French are a lazy people, and I can say that because I'm half French Canadian, and French Canadians always have some beef with mainland French people. So if you're coming at me, that's my pre-defense.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
fluid French?
No, which makes it even better because fuck it, I don't care. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I've been wanting to, just be here in some capacity for quite a while. So I'm excited to get into these titles here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you. This was I was just really looking forward to this. So Andre, we're gonna kick it off with you for your first selection.
Okay, let's see. So none of the things that I have are necessarily new releases, but like for video releases, these are just kind of like the hits for me. And the first one that I have, I think possibly one of like the apexes of say like late 80s anti-romance in some respects, but also just very visceral in a lot of other means. I'm going with Michael Lehmann's Heathers, which it's a milestone movie. There's really nothing about this that should have gone correctly, because it's a first time directorial debut for Michael Lehmann. Daniel Waters' first script ever, and I believe one of the producers, Denise Denovi, is also her first film production. So everything about that points to how this shouldn't have happened, but yet here we are. If you're not familiar with Heathers, first of all, I would ask you to pause the video and watch Heathers. But it is a high school film, kind of like if you took like Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, those types of films, and you actually put in an effort to show teens as they actually were and still are in a film about how high school really is. Like, it sucks for a lot of people. Some people can really just skate through it, enjoying their time there despite how stupid it all is. It has some of the best dialogue still ever written in a film. It's endlessly quotable, and there's still some things that pop up every once in a while that I myself have missed. So for the plot, Heathers is about a group of cliquey girls in this high school in Westburg. I think it's Westburg High School. It's supposed to be in Sherwood, Ohio. Group of girls all just happen to be named Heather, except for one of them who's named Veronica, but she's an honorary Heather in the sense. she has been noticing that the girls are very cruel towards others and starts becoming very disapproving of that. She also meets this new transplant from somewhere else in the US named JD, played by Christian Slater in his first role. He gets to know her a little bit, and they start confronting the clique leader, Heather Chandler, who is the lead bitchy Heather. Each Heather has their own like personality appendage. Like there's the bitchy Heather, there's the nice Heather, there's the ditzy Heather. You know, if you've seen Mean Girls and not Heathers, Mean Girls borrows heavily from this, and also like a very, very fun movie. So the lead Heather is accidentally poisoned by an effort led by JD and Veronica and their newfound relationship. And when they realize that this wasn't intended, they try to make it look like a suicide. So they forge notes, signatures, everything. They go the whole 9 yards. And that kind of snowballs into a series of unfortunate events where the body count basically piles up. And it's got a fantastic set of scenes where Veronica, played by Winona Ryder, who was also shooting Beetlejuice at the time, is having a very intense intellectual relationship with her diary. And there's certain scenes throughout the movie where, you know, she's writing in her diary, you have the voiceover, and it's just like this delicious dialogue. And it also kind of like strikes a balance between Heather's this film and Beetlejuice, because there's also a set of like diary specific scenes, and it's a nice little like it kind of rhymes with each other. It's like the other side of the coin, where one is a lot more sardonic and dark and like tongue-in-cheek funny, where Beetlejuice lies, but then Heather's is way more in your face, and it doesn't care like who it offends. And it's, you know, I can't recommend it highly enough. This release is from RLJE, which is, I think, just before the Arrow video release, which was UK only. But this does have some extras from the Arrow release, like some interviews, special featurettes, that kind of thing. And it has 2 different commentaries. This one specifically, one legacy commentary with the director Michael Lehman, writer Daniel Waters, and producer Denise Denovi. Great legendary commentary track. If you've only seen it once, highly recommend. If you only listen to one commentary track, make that one be it. The other one has like another with the director Michael Lehman and the composer. I think I might be wrong on this, but it might be the isolated score. And there's 2 discs to this whole thing, so there's like so much stuff in here. There's an interview series that runs for 3.5 hours. Really, really packed. So until we get an Arrow video in the US release of this is the one to get. So that is Heather's.
Nice. Yeah, that movie's so quotable. My favorite line is the dad. He's like, "I love my dead gay son."
I love how they're like, it's the twin funeral, and they're both gonna be buried in their football helmets, and they have a football on their chest. That whole thing. Oh, and the pastor is also an actor in Beetlejuice too.
Oh, right. That's right.
So you get some more Beetlejuice connections here.
Need a Heather Beetlejuice.
If we're going for quotes, I have to throw in "Fuck Me Gently with a Chainsaw." That's one that's used around the house quite a bit.
Nice.
Also, part of one of the jokes that I had missed was that one of those dead gay sons, when they were discovered dead in the woods, these 2 policemen come over and they discover one of the forged suicide notes. And I think what was written was like, we couldn't bring our love into this uncaring an ununderstanding world. And like I just listened to that like for maybe the 500th time, but I finally got it and I started laughing. It was just great. So high school.
Yeah, that's one that I really, really want to revisit, but I want it to be on 4K. I don't know why they haven't released it yet. I think they really need to. They need to bring like that the Arrow special features with a new like 4K Dolby Vision transfer. That would be perfect. So please make it happen, whoever is listening.
Yeah, if the delay between the UK only release and a potential 4K worldwide release is in the works, I think it'll be worth it. It's gonna sell like hotcakes for sure.
Absolutely. I am going to move on to my first title, and this is almost in defiance to you, Andre, after making fun of my French, because I'm starting with a French trilogy, like one of the more famous French trilogies. That is the new Criterion 4K release of the Three Colors trilogy. So this, okay, I have to say this is a lot of set here, and I'm not going to go too in depth into like plot, because as someone who edits our podcast knows, sometimes our box sets can get a little lengthy. So I will try to go quickly. First, I'll just like kind of show off this cool packaging. So this is the 4K release. This is there's the Three Colors blue. You have the Blu-ray and 4K disc, and the artwork over here. You have a nice Juliette Binoche over here. Yep, make fun of my pronunciation, Andre.
No, you're doing great so far.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Your pronunciation of Three Colors was spot on.
Thank you. I've been working on it. You can save your ridicule for when I try to pronounce the director's name.
Oh no, I do that in the edit. Don't worry.
Okay, good. You have the Three Colors white, which the 4K and Blu-ray, and this one stars Julie Delpy, and I'm not sure if I did the back here. And then Three Colors red with Irene Jacobs. I said her last name kind of quietly because I was not entirely confident.
Just whisper it. Yeah.
And Jean-Louis Trintigan. Yep. At least I didn't say John Lewis, so I know it's John Louis.
There you go.
And then finally, you have a awesome booklet here. It's like really thick, and you have
nice.
like an essay for each film. Just tons of. Now I'm just showing all pictures. Yeah, there are essays for each film. So this is stacked.
Wow.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the new 4K disc comes from a 4K restoration, and they are all in Dolby Vision. And the Blu-rays that are included are the older Blu-rays that I actually have up here from when I own this on Blu-ray. But if you do have a soft spot for the Blu-rays, they are also there, and I think they are also the ones that include all these special features. Just filling out the kind of technical aspects of this a little bit more. So all of these, like I said, these were previously released on Blu-ray. There is a little bit of controversy around this particular set because some people have an issue with some of the different color timing with this one. Some people think that it's more accurate to kind of the prints. Like there's like demonstrations of like how this is more accurate to like how the prints were supposed to look. And some people think it maybe pushes a little bit away from like the intended color scheme, but this is approved by the cinematographer, but sometimes these approved by cinematographer transfers aren't always like to what people want them to be. And they kind of change things after the fact. And I don't have like a strong like preference either way. Like I'm not like slavish to how these looked before. I think that these are not like an abomination or anything. I think these actually look really nice, and if you can get over the slightly different color timing, these still retain kind of the proper aesthetic look that each film is supposed to have. These are meant to kind of showcase each color of the film, like red, blue, and white. they do have kind of that more pervading color scheme that kind of ties in emotionally to what each film is trying to convey. And so if you can kind of get over the slight change in color scheme, which some people would argue is more accurate, this includes so much more detail than the old Blu-rays, because this is a 4K restoration when the other Blu-rays were kind of an older source. You do get that intense upgrade in texture and a better encoding, and just so much more detail and richness to the picture that, like I said, if you can get over kind of the difference in color timing, it doesn't really bother you that much, these are really fantastic looking releases. These also do, strangely, the old Blu-rays were DTS 2.0. These are 5.1, so I'm not sure why they didn't include the original 2.0 soundtrack. So also that's another thing to be aware of if you're an audio purist. These don't seem to have the 2.0 soundtracks on them as well. But if you do want to hear them, you do have the intended Blu-ray, but that would probably be just more so like if you don't already have the Blu-ray, that's also, if you might want to weigh that when upgrading. One very important point though, despite the color grade issues, the 3 colors blue on the old Blu-ray was misframed. So they had the wrong aspect ratio. So part of the, like, some of the framing had like part of like Juliette Binoche's like bottom of her like jaw, like kind of like cut off by the frame. This has the proper framing. They've restored it so it looks how it's supposed to look in that regard. So that's a big, like, if you're weighing like balancing how things look, like that's a huge plus for the 4K. You get the proper framing, which I think is like one of the more important things for a visual medium. So this includes, like I said, all the Blu-ray, so it includes all the legacy special features. I will not go through every single one of them because we would be here for a long time, because this was Criterion in their prime, where they were like including like so many like interviews and like select scene commentary tracks. Like I know at least like on 3 Colors Blue, Juliette Binoche does select scene commentary tracks. There are different short films included from Krzysztof Kieslowski. So yeah, I'm sorry. There's a lot of like consonants in here and about like it's crazy, but yes. Yeah. So there are like interviews with him, short films from him, interviews from experts, just lots of different really cool special features to put these into context to what this is. And what is this, you may ask? Why is this on the anti-romance, non-traditional romance? These are 3 tales which are kind of tied to a larger theme of, these all correspond with the French flag. So yes, France. Yes, we're talking about France. So this corresponds with liberty, equality, and fraternity is what each of them kind of like a more of a thesis statement for what these 3 tales are. And like I said, without breaking down what each one of them are specifically, there's a lot of non-traditional like love and loss and bonding. There's one tale, like the one with Blue, where Juliette Binoche, like she loses her husband, and it's like kind of a process of her grieving him, but in the course of grieving him, learning more about him, that kind of like, it's more about the process of letting love go rather than like being in love, and kind of like what learning secrets about people you loved affect you, especially when they're no longer around. But then there's also other types of love, like in 3 Colors Red, where like 2 people who like never seem like they should cross each other's paths start forming like an intense bond that may not be romantic, but it's tied to kind of like some, I don't want to give stuff away, but like kind of like mystery and like happenstance. So there's a lot of, and then there's like in like 3 Colors White, there's like almost like an absence of love and like kind of like resentment out of like not having mutual respect. So there's a lot of interesting layers of love, which I think whenever I heard like what we were doing with this episode, I was like, this trilogy is kind of all encompassing of like all of the aspects of love and all the messiness of love, which I think is just so fascinating. And that this kind of coincided with this 4K release. I was like, I got to talk about this, even though, like I said, it's a lot of box set, but I think it's worth it. If you're like a contemporary cinema, like world cinema fan, this is like one of like the most like important / best trilogies that you can kind of hope to kind of get you, if you're not even into it, it'll probably get you into like international cinema. It's so great, and I highly recommend it. And if either of you seen any, I'd love to hear your impressions of this trilogy, because I love it.
Who's the director again?
Yeah.
Nope, not gonna do it.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
Just say I can't remember, Dillon. That would suffice. No, I think I had seen Blue for the first time in a college class, and I had no idea what we were going to get into. And it was an interesting way to look at it, because the college class had something to do about looking at history and art through the lenses of like the five senses, and like Blue has a lot to do with music and like audio, like the oral way of experiencing things. And Juliette Binoche's character's husband was a composer, and she is like, what do you do when your loved one is gone but has left behind like this mountain of work that is so indicative of the person that they were? And that was something that really resonated with me, especially since at the time I was going to school for music specifically. So it very much was relevant to my interests, as the kids say. It kind of just really bowled me over. And I think back then I think it was probably the Criterion DVD. So maybe I was watching the incorrect version back then, where her chin was cut off. So maybe what I should do is, however I can, check out the 4K release of Blue first, since that was my first introduction, and just see, where I've come around on that.
Absolutely, yeah. I would like, even if it's not a follow-up on the video, I would love to hear your thoughts on this whenever you revisit it.
And I am very sorry to say that I haven't seen any of these yet. I know. I want to remedy that very quickly. I think you kind of sold me on just picking up the 4K set. So, my first title is a 4K title, and that is Misery. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory why this would be like an anti-Valentine's Day movie, but it's all about a one-sided sort of ultimate fan, very toxic sort of one-sided relationship. And I love it. I think it's iconic for a reason. It's definitely one of my favorite 90s. I mean, people say like Thriller, it's a horror movie, people. I mean, it's fine to say that it's a horror movie.
Stephen King doesn't write thrillers,
right?
Necessarily.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, it's always like, oh, it's not a horror movie; it's a thriller. When you want, like if it wins an Oscar, it's not a horror movie anymore. But anyway,
it's a very commercial answer.
Yeah.
But I love it. Kathy Bates, iconic. James Caan, who we sadly lost not too long ago, great. I think it's hard to pick between this and The Godfather, what my favorite like James Caan movie is, but it's really fantastic. I'm probably not going to talk a lot about the movie because I feel like everyone's seen it, everyone knows what it's about. Have y'all read the book?
I have not yet.
The book is really fantastic, and what's kind of cool is Annie Wilkes, she's a nurse, and she went to nursing school in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which was not very far from where I grew up. So that was kind of jarring to read that, but that was kind of cool.
There's potential in you yet, Mike, for some of your favorite writers.
But yeah, I think it's a really solid adaptation. I will say there's some things about the book, of course, that I think is a little bit better. But conversely, I think that there's things that they do a little bit better in the movie to kind of streamline some of the shaggy parts of King's writing. Because, I mean, he always kind of... I find him overwritten sometimes, even though I really like Stephen King. But yeah, this adaptation really does a nice job of again, like streamlining the certain elements of the book. I will say there's this amazing scene in the book which I wish was in the movie, where like Annie Wilkes has an axe, and this is kind of spoilers for the book, so I'm just putting it out there. Do you mind, since y'all haven't read it?
Oh, sure.
Go for it. Go
Okay.
for it.
Well, so they discover Annie Wilkes's dead body. Like it's a little bit like Jack Torrance, not in the book, because I think in the book he explodes, but like in the Shining movie, where she's like clutching this axe, and that's how they find her body. And I'm just like, oh, that is so fucking cool. I I like this adaptation. I would love to see what they could do with like a newer version, maybe even like a mini series. Although Stephen King in miniseries is sometimes not great, but I feel like we're getting better.
Well, we did get a little bit of like young Annie Wilkes in the second season of Castle Rock,
yeah,
which was sadly canceled, and I gotta say, great casting on that.
Oh yeah. That's an excellent point. Yeah, I like, if y'all follow me on Twitter, I will occasionally be like, what's going on with Castle Rock? I want somebody to pick it up. I love it. I love that show.
Well, hey, with Mike Flanagan on Amazon, I don't know. I mean, like, I know he's busy doing like his own stuff, especially with the Dark Tower, and he should absolutely focus on that. But I feel like he's also sad that Castle Rock got the axe.
Well, and in the first season they did that tease for going back to the Overlook. And that just left me with horror blue balls. So
in more ways than one, it's very cold at the Overlook.
So this is the Kino Studio Classics 4K release. This was among their first 4K releases, I believe. And it's stacked. I believe these are all legacy features. I don't know if there's anything necessarily like new exclusively from Kino, and feel free to let me know otherwise if I'm speaking out of turn, but I believe these are all just ported over from previous releases. But the 4K looks great. Sounds amazing. This is a very atmospheric, kind of cozy, I like cozy horror in a sense. Not the story or themes, but it's one of those like wintry, like you have some hot chocolate, you watch Misery, right? So yeah, so it looks great. They did a really nice job with like the HDR coloring. Really nothing to complain about. I think like if you're wanting to upgrade, I think this is still in print. You can definitely still pick this up pretty inexpensively. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first like Kino 4K releases where that kind of seemed to open up the floodgate after that. And that I know people had problems with Silence of the Lambs because like some of like the first 20 minutes is in the wrong color space, but leaving that alone, like just seeing Misery come out, people like I was like, oh, Kino is a force in 4K. Now they've been like continuing to like really up their output to like being one of my favorite like distributors of 4K discs, because they put out like so many great older, sometimes like more little obscure for like mainstream taste. Like I really appreciate like, and this one kind of seemed to kind of more kick it off in like a grand way. Like, so I have a soft spot for that disc for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's nice to like, even though there's not a lot of like exclusive features for that 4K release, having all of like the special features of the previous releases rolled into that one, I think is like a very economic way to kind of like kick off your 4K line. If it wasn't the first one or like one of the earlier ones from them, definitely a smart decision. But yeah, it's just easier to have it all in one spot, so you can actually confidently, get rid of the older Blu-rays and DVDs. Like if you've been like following each release for Misery specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. You can be its #1 fan. for sure.
To show up to the Kino studios with all
Yeah.
of your, you know,
I'm your
healthcare
number one
accoutrements.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm next. So I'm going to go along the transgressive route here. And that can only mean one thing for me, and that is paying attention to one of some of, I don't know if it's underlooked necessarily, but I don't see it talked about quite as much as his other films. And that would be director John Waters, because my next title is Polyester. So this is another one of his films where he's cast Divine in another starring role. This time she plays a frustrated housewife in like a very plastic 1950s picture perfect Norman Rockwell community. She plays Francine Fishpaw, who is trying to maintain her sanity in a dysfunctional household where she's married to a man who runs a porno theater and is basically like the scourge of the town, of the small community that they're in. I think that's played by David Sampson. So he is also on the side sleeping with the secretary. Also, let's see, forgetting, played by the inimitable Mink Stole, who, if you've ever seen Pink Flamingos or Pink Flamingos especially, Mink Stole just like really just punches out at you. Her bitchiness is legendary, and there's kind of a string, honestly, in my films of bitchiness. So I guess that kind of like jumps out as like one of the anti-romance, anti-Valentine's Day sentiments. So Francine's husband is running this adult movie theater and struggling to get by, and like seeing this secretary on the side. Her teenage son is also he's kind of like running amok around the town, and we know this, but she doesn't know this, that he is also this notorious serial foot stomper that's going around the town and like stomping on women's feet specifically, and like putting them in the hospital, something like very utterly ridiculous. I'm trying to remember then they gave him a name in the movie, like some kind of serial killer name, like moniker, which I'm blanking on right now, but it's really funny. And they also have a teen daughter who gets pregnant in the film, and like it's just all created to make this completely dysfunctional family drama with an anti-romance narrative at the center, especially when Francine, Divine's character, meets this guy named Todd Tomorrow, played by the great Tab Hunter. And she falls in love with him head over heels, and he seems to respond in kind, but as they spend more time together, realize that it's not as mutual as it once seemed. So John Waters can't just stop there. It is the one thing about his directorial and writing style. He made the film in accordance to one of his favorite, like William Castle style releases, and that is presenting the film in a another dimension of senses, and that is odorama, where on the release of the film theatrically, each member of the audience were given a scratch and sniff card, and there are 10 different scents. And throughout the film, when something happens, there'll be a number, and like in the bottom right corner of the screen or something, and that's when you scratch the card and you smell it, and then you can like experience along with the characters in the film. And one of the great things about this Criterion release is they provide the card with each number here. There's a special extra on the disc where John Waters is shown testing different scents that Criterion gives him, and he's like actually kind of disappointed and pissed off. So he actually says that like some of the scents on this card are not exactly as they were back then, even though some of the scents that were sent to them are like supposedly upgraded or something like that. So he has a little bit of disdain about the odorama thing, and he said like if I could get the older ones, I would prefer that. But this is one of like, if you are feeling blue and think that there's no one out there who truly appreciates you for who you are, Francine Fishpaw is probably inclined to agree with you. And this is more like a comfort blanket over the like that sadness that you might have about just not being able to connect with anyone on a romantic level the way that you think they would in turn give to you. And it's not cathartic. It's mildly upsetting at times, but I mean that's John Waters. So I think he has a line saying, if you're watching a movie to feel good, then there's no reason to be watching the movie. He revels in creating like a bad time for his moviegoers, and he just finds that more interesting. So if you're looking for something to sympathize with, Polyester is one of the best anti-romance films out there, and beautifully shot. Colors look great. I believe this is a 2K restoration of the film. There's nope, it's a 4K digital transfer. There's some great other extras. There's a film introduction by John Waters in a specific theater that for some reason said that you couldn't smoke. So he has like this intro where he's smoking a cigarette the whole time, and he's saying like, you can't smoke in the theater. I don't know why, because why wouldn't you, like, how can you watch a movie for 90 minutes and not smoke?
But don't you wish you had one right now? And I'm telling you that smoke anyway, it gives ushers jobs, and if people didn't smoke, there would be no employment for the youth of today. So once again, no smoking in this theater.
So very fun. Lots of interviews with like the actors, especially some like later interviews with like Tab Hunter, which is interesting given his political trajectory over the years. And a bunch of archival interviews, and there's a really nice commentary as well. And yeah, there's Polyester. If you watch nothing else, make this the movie you watch on Valentine's Day. It may change your life.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. It's one of those that it's not my favorite John Waters, but it's definitely the one where I feel like he's channeling like Frank Perry the most, which I love. So yeah, it's great. Have you all seen Lust in the Dust, which also has Divine and Tab Hunter?
I've not seen it yet. I own a VHS of it, and I still haven't checked it out yet.
Paul Bartel, gay icon, amazing. Great movie. If you also want something to pair that with, Lust in the Dust is pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one I have not seen yet. So, Andre, you may have convinced me to at least like add it to my list. I'm not sure if I'll make it Valentine's Day viewing this year, but we'll see.
It's okay.
Honestly,
love happens in every season, Dillon.
Okay.
I think that Pink Flamingos could be a good anti-Valentine Day movie as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jesus.
that is a thread that runs pretty rampant in John Waters' films. fuck, I mean, even Desperate Living, like, which desperately needs a Blu-ray release.
Yes.
Come on, Criterion.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely second that. I got to meet the actor that plays Mole in that, Susan Lowe, and she is amazing.
So
But Dylan, have you seen what John Waters movies have you seen? I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
Okay, so I was scarred by pink flamingos at way too young of an age. Just like all the feces stuff, and licking and all that stuff. I was just like, this is a lot, and it kind of
but
like
you were cool with the chicken scene though. Just check it.
yeah, that was fine. That was fine. No, I legit
this is
was
fine.
probably
Poop.
I was probably like 10 or so when I saw this. This was a lot.
Oh man.
But I've seen like more of the modern. I've seen like A Low Down Dirty Shame. Not Stepmom, Serial Mom. And I'm not sure what else. There's a few others I've seen, but I cannot like the more of like modern, more tame comparatively.
Stuff.
Yeah. But I don't know. I had such a visceral reaction to Pink Flamingos. I'm just like, I'm scared of all of that stuff. And like, I'll revisit it at some point, but it was so much. And just like Divine, I don't know. It's just like something about Divine is just like, I don't know. It just gives me like full body shivers. Like, I mean, like most respectful way.
I mean, honestly, Divine would probably love that being the description of
full body shivers. 5 stars, says Dylan Gonzalez. I mean, honestly, Polyester, and I would actually suggest Female Trouble as like as a re-entry point into John Waters, because it has all those elements that he works with so well. Pink Flamingos is very rough, as you might agree with and remember. And it was also made specifically to be that upsetting at first, just to get his name out there. He just wanted to throw everything he possibly could in front of the camera, and it works because everyone knows who John Waters is now. And yeah, so for his pre-studio stuff, I would definitely highly recommend maybe just do like a Female Trouble Polyester double feature if you can get your hands on the Criterion scratch and sniff card. I don't know, it might sway you. Like, who knows, like the second you smell what is it, like dirty tennis shoes or like a skunk, I think one of the other senses, like I think it's just a fart. One of them is just a fart.
I might like have like a separate chat with you two where I'm just like, okay, rank John Waters from like least gross to most gross, and I'll just kind of like work my way and like build up a tolerance to
but all jokes aside, I think Female Trouble is like a good way to like kind of acclimate to John Waters. It's not like, it's definitely not as hardcore as like his really early stuff, like Pink Flamingos or Multiple Maniacs, stuff like that.
All right, I'll keep it in mind. Moving on to my next title. I knew I was going to be doing this with two horror fans, so I wanted to bring out something a little bit interesting, a little bit gnarly. So for my next title, from Lionsgate and Vestron, The Dentist Collection.
All right.
Yes, because nothing screams anti-Valentine like The Dentist 1 and 2. So I was quite happy that this kind of lined up the way it did, because just Corbin Burnson, I mostly knew him as like the dad from Psych for a lot of the time, and now I'm like kind of like catching up on some of his older stuff, and this is quite a turn in both of these movies. So for those who don't know, this kind of like, anyone who's ever afraid of going to the dentist, like this just kind of reaffirms every worst fear that you might have. Just the reason why these kind of fit into this particular theme is because he is a dentist. He is married to a wife that he's kind of having like kind of like little spats with. They kind of have like a little bit of contempt for one another, but he's still trying to like make it work. And then one day he learns that he stumbles across that his wife is having an affair with the guy who cleans their pool, and it kind of sends sends on like a mental break, and he just starts seeing rot and decay and like all of society, and just starts taking people out. And just like I don't have a problem with like arms getting chopped off or like decapitations, but when you start getting into like teeth getting like intensely drilled, it like more the full body shivers again. So just like the way he starts seeing the world, and like he tries to continue like after like dealing with the pool guy and his wife, he goes back to work and tries to kind of like play it normal as he's like unraveling like with his psychotic break. So that kind of develops, and I don't want to give it all away. And this does go on to part 2, which I won't say how, but he continues in a different town, tries to like be the best version of himself. He like, maybe he can find love. Maybe he can like, he stumbles across another woman who like seems like she could possibly be the one, until those lingering thoughts of jealousy and like starts eating away at him, and he starts seeing like her talking to other guys around town and being kind of like playful with them, and it just triggers something like that jealousy in his head. And oh boy, the dentist is back in a new town. So these two movies are very wild. They're very like simple premises. It's just a dentist gone crazy. It just starts killing people, and it's like very visceral special effects. These, I believe, they're both directed by Brian Usna, who I know at least Mike, you're friends with, and you've done videos with him before. And he does commentary tracks on both of these.
Nice.
I believe with the special effects artist. And this is loaded with special effects. But these movies, these are just like love gone wrong, like terribly, terribly wrong. And so it's really cool that these were released, both of them on Blu-ray in this nice collection. And this is very affordable for Vestron. Like, you know, that they, especially the last couple of years, they've been doing very budget-friendly releases. I was just looking at this before we got on this recording. It's like $11.99 for both movies. I will say these are digitally restored, but I gotta admit, they don't look great. Okay, they're older masters. There's a lot of nicks and scratches and everything. They look passable, but you're not going to say, oh, these look beautiful. These are like pristine. These are pretty rough older masters. Probably give it like a 2.5 out of 5 if I was grading. It's just like, it is what it is. They didn't really put a ton of effort. They just kind of ran a pass and put it out. And it's like, it's a budget friendly release, but where they make up for it is it's loaded with special features. As I mentioned, you have commentary tracks on both films. You have additional interviews with Brian Usna, with like, I know there's at least like a 16 or 17 minute interview with Corbin Burnson. There's interviews with like the producers, and like I think the person who did the score, if I'm not mistaken. There's a ton of interviews that run from about 10 to 17 minutes each on both discs. And I think I showed both discs, but yeah, they a separate disc, so it's not all crammed onto one disc, thankfully, with as many special features as there are. But I believe there's also isolated score tracks as well. So yes,
you
there
can
are.
put it on in your own dentist's office.
Yes.
Yeah.
And fun fact, my sister, she's a dental hygienist, so like this just made me. I'm gonna ask her some questions. I'm gonna like. I'm like.
Nice.
We need to talk. Yeah, and so yeah, there's a ton of interviews with like the special effects people, actors, trailers, a still gallery. It's loaded with special features, and like I said, $12 for both movies. Pretty decent quality, not great, but decent quality. And these are just like pretty gnarly, fun horror movies that will just make you think twice before you make your next dentist appointment. But it is what it is.
Or at least maybe just like kind of stalk your dentist and see if you can check in on their psychological profile before establishing their DDS business.
Yeah, ask the
might just be a good idea in
like,
general.
Yeah, ask the receptionist if they've been going through any like crises at home.
Has there been any like big life events recently? Because I got a root canal scheduled.
Yes.
Yeah, I love those movies. Ryan is such a character. Andre, you were on that podcast with him, right?
I was not. I
Okay.
listened to it though. The one
Um,
where he drops this bomb right at the end when everything was like wrapping up, and we're like, okay, well, thanks so much for having us. Like, oh yeah, and I'm writing this book.
yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell the story. I have a couple really quick stories. So we were doing the Humanoids from the Deep Dive podcast, which is a podcast that Andre and I co-host. I will also link all that stuff in the description because y'all should check it out. But so we had Brian on, and this was like pretty early because that's why I wasn't sure, Andre, if you were on at this time. But we always give like time for people to like plug stuff, whatever you got going on. So our host Jeff is like, what do you got going on now? And he's like, well, I'm writing this book about a guy that kills like pedophile priests. And we're all just kind of like, it's like that classic needle rip of like, wow.
And then yeah, he just cuts it off there. Is like, you know,
As you do. So we were like, alrighty. So and then so when I interviewed him a couple times, the one time I was telling him about I have this prop radar gun from Slither, and it's called the Usna 3000, and I was like, that's so cool because they named a prop after you. And he's like, well, considering James Gunn ripped everything off from Society from Slither, he should be paying homage to me. I'm paraphrasing, but that was
yeah.
the gist of it. And I was like, alrighty. Like, but I
Which
mean,
reminds me of a quote that John Waters has on one of his special features things, where he's like, paying homage in Hollywood is sending me a check.
yeah. And to his credit, I see his point. Like, there are visual similarities between Society and Slither. I don't think it was a ripoff at all. I think that like James Gunn certainly, like, I'm sure is aware of that movie. Maybe it was a
Yeah.
nice cheeky little homage, but I wouldn't say it ripped it off. I love that James Gunn named a video store the Henenlotter video store. That's so fucking great.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's enough of peepaw rambling. So I guess I'll just launch into my next title, which is Fatal Attraction. So now I'm starting off very conventional, but as we go along, I'm going to get a little bit more weirder, a little bit more like unconventional. But yeah, this is, I would say it's a great movie. It's very of its time. The gender politics are pretty yikes, but I still find it very captivating. I can't help it. I think it's well acted. Everybody's great. I do not find Michael Douglas attractive in this movie.
Some do.
I mean, like there's certain lights when I'm like, I get it, kind of, but then there's other times that I'm like, I don't get it. I don't like. I see more like, I'm not like shaming anybody's looks or whatever. I just personally, I'm like, I don't see it. Like, I would think like maybe Harrison Ford at the time would have been a little bit of a better choice. But
I think Michael Douglas has like the sleaze factor that comes with like a lot of erotic thrillers of the time.
Yeah.
Basic Instinct being like the apex of that suggestion, where he absolutely is very sleazy. Like he's the kind of guy who would like pick the lock to a woman's apartment while she's taking a shower, peer through the door, and just like cop a quick look, and then like rummage through her shit to like do whatever he's doing plot wise in the movie. And yeah, he's very much like the human embodiment of sexual sleaze in some ways, where like he looks like a voyeur, Sorry, Michael Douglas.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, I guess he plays, what is it, like a lawyer or like
Super sleazy.
something that's a little bit like, I don't know. But yeah, it's a classic for a reason though. Like I said, it's a movie that it was hotly debated at the time, and I think even more so now, especially, recontextualizing it post Me Too. I really side with like Glenn Close's character. I'm like, I feel so bad for her. Like, I'm like, girl, you need to do what you got to do. I don't know. I think it sucks that they had to like kill her off. One fun little fact though, Glenn Close says she has a knife from Fatal Attraction hung prominently in her house, and I love that.
Nice.
Good for her.
So yeah, I think this isn't a by no means perfect looking 4K, but I think it certainly is a nice upgrade from previous releases that were a little bit too muddy and dark looking. I think this sort of improves on that. Again, it's not flawless. There's definitely like issues with some of the like coloring, some of the like blacks aren't maybe as like deep or complex enough, but it's pretty good. It sounds great. It doesn't really have anything like groundbreaking as far as extras go. Unfortunately, I'm not even seeing like what the extras are here, but I assume that they ported over everything from like the previous releases, which we're fine. I kind of want to see what apparently Brian De Palma actually was going to direct Fatal Attraction. But his idea was too far out. Like he wanted like Glenn Close's character to be in like full kind of kabuki makeup. Like it was almost supposed to be sort of like Halloween-esque. So yeah, I always wish we could have gotten some version of that someday. But anyways, yeah, Fatal Attraction, it definitely, I mean, it's very obvious why this is an anti-Valentine's Day movie. It's the fuck around and find out movie. If you cheat, you know.
Oh man, those erotic thrillers around the time were so
Yes.
obsessed with like cheating subplots and plots. As far as the extras go, I know it's not on there, but there really should be like a silent commentary track by Michael Douglas where he's just watching you watch the movie.
Yeah, it's like him just going like,
It's like the movie audio just dips, but like no one says anything, and then it just goes back up to the same level. And you just look around.
Also, there is it's not very prevalent in US, but like the bunny boiler is a colloquial term in I believe England, which is derived from this movie. So that's another cool little fact.
It's cultural significance. Come on, Fatal Attraction. Yeah, I haven't really seen a lot of like the big I guess like blockbuster erotic thrillers of the time, other than like the big ones. And I guess to put a shameless plug in for a group of friends that I have that also that one of their podcasts, they talk exclusively about these erotic thrillers, and I'm sure they've covered Fatal Attraction, and that is The Suspense is Killing Us. It's three guys. Actually, now it's they replaced one of the guys because he's off doing his own thing now, and it's basically all people who have worked and still currently work at the wonderful Scarecrow Video, whose boxes I'm actually borrowing right now. So they're short 5 titles because of me. So also want to thank them for letting me do this. Sorry I had to renew the movies, but whatever. Highly recommend Suspense is Killing Us. You can kind of cherry pick your way through the show. They have a lot of great things to say and not great things to say about this cinematic trend that was subsequently killed by network television. and they have a lot of thoughts on that too.
Mm.
Anyway, that's the end of the plug. I'm going to go into my next film, which is this is a classic, and it is also pretty much one of the most popular films of the year that it came out. And I'm talking about John M. Stahl's Leave Her to Heaven. This is a beautiful Technicolor noir. Although it doesn't look like it, it absolutely is. It is about a woman, Ellen, who runs into this author, Richard Harland, played by Cornell Wilde. He looks almost exactly like Tony Curtis in shots, where I just like keep thinking is that Tony Curtis? No. And he meets her on a train. They have like this great back and forth. The dialogue is also especially like really tasty and nice. So this novelist accepts an invitation to write his next book on a friend's remote ranch. So he's on the train to get to this retreat in New Mexico, and that's where he meets Ellen, played by the amazing Gene Tierney, who is once again bitchy and just absolutely stunning in this movie. And I think she's probably the reason this was shot in Technicolor. There was like no real reason that they needed to do that, but you know, once you watch the film, you know. So she lives in like this kind of like large-ish family of like found sisters. Like her sister is adopted, not by birth. She's also very musically inclined. The sister like has a green thumb, that sort of thing. Their family dynamic is very intriguing and not exactly explained throughout the film. So there's an air of mystery about them, which Ellen also maintains for herself. When he arrives there, Richard Harland, the author, they are talking about holding like a funeral of sorts for their deceased father, who's been cremated and wanted to be scattered. He wanted his ashes to be scattered on mountaintop where they spent a lot of time. So it's like this very somber yet respectful ceremony that Richard is like looking on, watching this whole thing. During this whole time, Richard is pretty much smitten with her, although to a certain degree. Like he feels like there is something not quite bridging the distance between the two. But she surprises him when one of her ex-boyfriends, played by Vincent Price, comes to the house, and she immediately tells Richard, "Let's get married." And he's like, "What? Okay." And just does not, there's no lead up to this at all. Like when you're watching the movie, you're thinking, did we just jump in time? No, this is in like sequence. She's like, no, this is the opposite of taking a relationship slow. She becomes so obsessed with him that anyone in the same room with as them is like getting in the way. So she has like this feeling of crowdedness, as she alludes to, and she is extremely possessive and will do whatever it takes to like remove someone from the equation, even if it's just at a weekend retreat. There's a very famous scene in this film, which is a little bit of a spoiler, so I'm not gonna like describe it, but it involves her in a rowboat, actually, from the cover here. This is the 1,000-mile stare that she so famously gives. And yeah, it's the you think that this is going into a place of romance and happily ever after, but I think the film actually clues you in on that at the beginning, because it starts at the end, and then they frame the whole story in like a flashback of like these two old guys just talking about what happened or something. So, and then it cuts back to the beginning ending. So it's very book ended in that way. It's presented in book chapters. It's based on a novel. There's just something so extra filmic about Leave Her to Heaven, where all the interior shots are so like wide and open spaced. But something that I noticed recently, 'cause I just rewatched this movie last night, the interior shots also pretty much all include not only like the mise en scène of the interior, you know, with decorations and textures and things, stuff that film noir is very famous uh, for including, but also like the floor and the ceiling in the same shot. So you get this feeling, you get this feeling of being boxed in. It's a little claustrophobic at times. It also has this anti-Norman Rockwell feeling too, which is interesting from a film that came out in 1945. That being said, I think I've covered the recommendation portion of Leave Her to Heaven. This Criterion actually doesn't have a lot of extras, but that's okay because, I mean, the merits of the film alone can really speak for themselves. There is a new interview with a film critic, Imogen Sarah Smith. It's about like a almost 30-minute dive into the director, John Stahl. And there's some really interesting stuff there. It has certainly put a few of his, say, films from the 30s, maybe pre-code movies that they talk about on my list. And I believe there's a booklet in here with an essay by Megan Abbott, who's a novelist. And they just put a trailer on here. There's the transfer is a 2K digital restoration. I'm intrigued to see if there could possibly be a 4K at some point in the future, just because the Technicolor shots are just so beautiful. And I don't know, there's something about like just the way that the film looks. It's just, it draws you in with like the sickly sweetness of all these pastel colors that Technicolor is known for, but the content of the film, it just like, it stabs you in the heart. And I can't think of a classic film other than Leave Her to Heaven that would be so fitting for an anti-romance, because it's worse than unrequited love. It's worse than a real romance. It's malicious. I'll leave it at that. Leave Her to Heaven is very malicious. So
yeah, I love it. This is one I actually just recently watched. And yeah, it's every bit as amazing as everyone says it is. Yeah, it's definitely something you want to go in like super blind. I really only kind of knew maybe like the basic plot, but yeah, it's really fantastic. It's one of the more like chilling, especially again, I'm gonna try to not spoil it, but like the lengths that she goes is just haunting. Like it really is just unnerving. Dylan, have you seen this?
Now, I was gonna say I'm gonna be the odd man out, but like, don't worry, I have horrible memories, so this whole conversation will just be gone like here in a little bit. But I will say this has been on my list for a long, long time, and I was actually, while you were talking, I was like, do I own this? I was like trying to like sneakily look at my shelf, my Criterion shelf back here. I don't think I own this. I remember when it was announced, so people were like losing their minds because I love this movie so much. If I remember correctly, this was like released previously from the Criterion on like Twilight time, I believe, and it got like sold out.
Yeah.
So then it like that was out of print. So Criterion released this, and I think that there might have been issues with the like source material, so they couldn't do more than like a 2K scan. But I hope it's like one of those situations where they like maybe do find like a better print or something that they can spruce it up. But either way, like I'm definitely going to check it out. It's just like I haven't gotten around to it yet, but it's high on my list.
It's
I mean,
so good.
Yeah, if you have some time available on or around Valentine's Day, which is quickly coming up, people. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Uh, depending on how you and your partner are with watching this kind of stuff together, you know, in the face of actual affection you might feel towards each other, I would highly recommend it because it might bolster that relationship. It might raise some questions.
Bring us together.
Just when you watch the movie, don't take her on a lake retreat.
Okay.
And especially don't take her on a lake retreat when you have writing to do.
I constantly have writing to do, Andre. You know this.
Got to get that shit done before you go.
I'm a critic, Andre. There's constantly writing to be done.
I have opinions, damn it.
All right, I'll move it up the list. I'm sorry. I'm horrible. I got you. Moving on to my next title. This is the title that comes closest to actually being like an appropriate Valentine's Day movie, but I wanted to include it because it's a non-traditional sort of love. This is from 1968. It is from Kino Classics, and that is The Bliss of Mrs. Blossom. Which, so yes, it is a romantic comedy, but it is a very interesting romantic comedy. It stars Shirley MacLaine, Richard Attenborough, and James Booth. And I'll just show this. This is part of their Paramount deal. It's just standard artwork, no double-sided artwork. So the basic premise of this is Richard Attenborough's character. He runs a factory that manufactures brassieres. And his wife Shirley MacLaine, she's kind of doing her thing at home, just being kind of like that housewife role, and does some sewing and all that stuff around the house. And then one day, Richard Attenborough, her sewing machine breaks, so Richard Attenborough asks the James Booth character, who's more like a newer to the factory, to go to his home and help fix her sewing machine. And whenever he goes over to their house, they kind of start he's kind of like a easily excited. I guess he's blustered, he gets kind of overwhelmed by some of her comments, and kind of he kind of stumbles over his words and stutters and all that stuff. So it's kind of like the typical kind of cutesy romance stuff, but they become kind of intrigued by one another through their conversations, and they eventually end up in the throes of romance with one another. But whenever so they spend time together, and he ends up hiding away in their attic while the Richard Attenborough character comes home. But when he's supposed to leave, he just doesn't leave, and then he ends up just kind of fixing up the attic in their in their house to just become his room that he secretly lives in, while the Richard Attenborough character, whenever he goes to work, he'll come down and have a romance with Shirley MacLaine. But all throughout, everyone's wondering what happened to this dude. He just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. He's just living in their attic, and it's a weird romance. But what's interesting to me is Shirley MacLaine's character isn't necessarily just simply fed up with her husband and just wanting to have this other romance. She still loves her husband, but this new guy played by James Booth, he's just giving her something that she's kind of missing in her life. So it's kind of each man is kind of giving her a little bit of something that she kind of needs, and it's through both of these men, she's kind of getting what she needs fully out of the romance department. And the way their dynamics evolve, and it's kind of I don't want to spoil stuff and everything, but it's kind of a quirky kind of slapsticky comedy at points. There will be Richard Attenborough will be at home and hear something, and he thinks he's going crazy because he hears stirring in the attic, which is James Booth, and he just thinks he's going insane, and him trying to sneak down while Richard Attenborough is at home to grab some, just all kind of like crazy slapsticky stuff. But the way the dynamic between the three evolves throughout the movie, as like through her having a relationship with this new guy, changes her dynamic with the Richard Attenborough character to kind of gives him like a different perspective on their romance and how he's kind of been taking his wife for granted, and how it's just a really interesting kind of like almost not quite like a throuple, but kind of like in that realm of just like how their dynamics change. And like it's really interesting, and like it's not your typical rom-com where you're just like a cheating wife is just cheating to get away from her husband or something. Like, it's lighthearted, but it's also complex and human emotions, and it really says something about like what love actually means and what different forms it can take. And it's really progressive in that sense. And like this is like the late 60s, things are kind of getting into that more like free love type situation and everything. So I really like this. And this is like Shirley MacLaine, like at maybe her most charming. Like people would argue that The Apartment is, but this, like, I having just like recently rewatched The Apartment with the new Kino 4K, this is like right up there with her. Like she is so charming. Richard Attenborough is just so great and kind of like playing it straight but slowly unraveling. It's a really fun performance from him. And then James Booth, he does a really good job as well, as more of kind of like a nebbish straight man type performance. So their dynamic is really great. It's a really fun, like, non-traditional romantic comedy, and it's only 93 minutes, so it never like overstays its welcome or draws out its premise longer than it needs to be. This comes from a new 4K scan of the original 35 millimeter original camera negative. It looks really nice. The colors are really bright and vibrant. You don't get even really that much in the way of like nicks or scratches. This has been cleaned up really well by Paramount. And there is an audio commentary by film historian Daniel Kramer, which gives you some additional context. And then you have a host of trailer like you do with every Kino disc. But if you're looking for like a non-traditional romantic comedy that still gives you an overall warm feeling, it's not the John Waters effect where he wants you to feel bad. This still makes you feel good, but it kind of like engages a different part of your brain of like what romance means. So The Bliss of Mrs. Blossom, I think it's a really fun discovery from Kino Classics, and I highly recommend it. It's a pretty fun movie.
Oh, nice. I was thinking of Three in the Attic, which came out in the same year, I think, and I wonder if there's like a connected just like attic specific you know, romantic swinging 60s kind of thing that was going on there. And then also like the fact that he's Richard Booth's character is just like kind of living in there made me think of Bad Ronald, which is very much not a sex comedy, although it could have been.
Yeah, I have not seen that, but like I love Shirley MacLaine, so that is an automatic win for me.
60s Shirley MacLaine,
yeah. Still amazing. I know she was in the recent Only Murders in the Building season, but so Andre, you were talking about noirs. I have what is considered by many to be like the greatest noir ever made, and I think that's completely accurate, and that is Double Indemnity. And this is
which they almost called it Indemnity. Just a little trivia note.
Would have been awful. But yeah, this has some really nice features. You can see that there, and I believe so like interior. So this is the 4K release, and I mean, how gorgeous is that?
What a great shot to use as your cover.
I mean, so fierce. I think it's funny because Barbara Stanwyck did this the same year she did this really like not cheesy but kind of cheesy like Christmas movie. So it was like funny that she did this in the same year, and I'm totally blanking on that title. Christmas in Connecticut. But yeah. So great essay. You know, it's a really nice presentation. So yeah, this movie is amazing. Like literally if you haven't seen it, I want you to just drop everything, whatever you're doing, pause this, watch it, let it wash over you. It is a masterpiece. And I don't like throwing that word around, but it really is. Billy Wilder was like at his like hit making prime. Um, Everything is so methodically put together, pieced out. I mean, his movies were like Swiss watches. Everything was just meticulous and methodical. The acting's great. Fred McMurray, Barbara Stanwyck, Edward G. Robinson, and honestly, I think one of my favorite performances from him. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but it certainly is a toxic romance. This is definitely one of the more like, you definitely couldn't like show sex, but Wilder was really good at being very suggestive. Um Sometimes I think it's a little more erotic than if they actually kind of would have showed them going at it. I mean, there's something that is just so palpable and like, mm, it's good. What do y'all think? Because I know I'd love to hear opinions.
You can go first, Dylan.
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, I really love this movie. I've been meaning to pick up that 4K because the last time I watched it was like on a pretty bad streaming quality. But yeah, I love this movie, and I've in recent years I've had a greater appreciation for Edward G. Robinson, but he's just like one of my favorite like old school Hollywood actors. He just has such a really distinct face and presence, and just like his demeanor, how he just goes from movie to movie. I just love what he adds to every movie. And just like Barbara Stanwyck, this is definitely one of my favorite performances from her, but like she is pretty much great in everything, including Christmas in Connecticut, which you mentioned. But yeah, this is a classic, one of my top Billy Wilders for sure. And I don't know why I don't own it yet. You're just kind of reminding me that like in the upcoming Criterion sale, I need to pick this up. And I'm so glad that so many of the titles we're talking about are Criterion. It seems like a fun coincidence, but yeah, they're just apparently the anti-romance labels, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Criterion, who hurt you? Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's been a couple of years since I've seen Double Indemnity, but that was the first time I'd seen it, and it was a lot to take in. Stanwyck, absolutely breathtaking. Edward G. Robinson, he has that warm, daddy, Ernest Borgnine kind of energy that he brings to things. And yeah, it's going to be something I'll probably need to rewatch. Maybe if I do a Noirvember selection later this year, I'll probably throw that into the mix. God, it's just, malicious is another word I would append to this too. And it's very much, I mean, when you bring insurance into a movie like this and romance, or like the plot thread of romance to either go with it or go against it, yeah, it gets really thorny. And the whole investigation, I mean, noirs are known for like their tangled webs of investigation, and like I think this is one of those noirs that is also based on a book, one of those male detective noirs, and they just don't get it. They don't get it until it's too late. And that's one of the things I love about noir films, is because like it flies in the face of like male infallibility, especially when they have like a police badge or a private investigator credential to like, get past the caution tape in certain degrees. And I just love that is something that was so prevalent in like the World War II, post World War II era, where that was something that like they needed to be gender affirmed in some way. Like, men are strong. Like, no, actually, they mostly just don't know what they're doing, and that is very mostly true, especially as illustrated in film noir. So
Yeah, like there's a moment when Well, first of all, like Stanwyck, I think is like the ultimate like femme fatale. She is the ultimate like spider lady. She like there's a moment when you can kind of tell um Fred McMurray's character is just his fate is sealed. Like he decides it's like the point of no return, and sh everyone is just so great in this. I mean, it's one of those rare movies where I think every single aspect and element is just firing on all cylinders. And I totally agree. I love Edward G. Robinson's very fatherly, like you were saying, like he can always sniff out the phony claims. And oh, God, it's so good. And I when I think of like bad romance or like twisted sort of love affairs, I think about this. I think about Vertigo, another classic, which almost made the list, but if we're gonna do honorable mentions, that's one for me for sure. But yeah, this really is like the greatest noir.
Hmm. Okay. So I'm gonna go out of noir for the rest of my picks here. Just for shits and giggles here. This is a title that has been on Blu-ray for a little while, but I think it's out of print now. But it's coming back. This is a little teaser for Criterion fans here. As of this episode, it will be about a month out from now, so I'm very curious to see what is coming to this inevitable 4K release. And this is something that I don't think people are talking about enough. And once the new Criterion comes out, I feel like we're going to have a lot of internet discourse with the good and the bad that comes from it. Of
The Joe Nickel and Silver.
yes, thank you.
I'm waiting for it. I've been waiting for it.
I'm waiting for it. Yes. Joe Nickel and Silver is just it's so fucking good. It is Chilly Scenes of Winter. Oh my God. I have not fallen in love with a movie as much as I have on this one. And this is a Twilight Time release that came out in 2015, 2014, something like that. This is I would put this like together with Leave Her to Heaven. So there's a point of comparison there for you, Dillon, to like if you're going to revisit, well, you will revisit Chilly Scenes of Winter next month when it gets released by Criterion. So maybe that would be a good time to check out Leave Her to Heaven.
Okay.
At any point which you choose. But the story of this is also kind of framed in like a series of flashbacks, where it stars John Hurd in a great role, whose name is Charles in the movie. He meets this woman named Laura who works in the same building that he does, and they've just never really interacted until he's had to go into like records or something. He does like reports on reports. It's like very amusingly told in like a way where people work in buildings and they don't exactly know what they're doing. So it's got a lot of commentary stuff on like work in modern times, which at this period was 1979. He is instantly smitten with her. And this is kind of like a reverse of Leave Her to Heaven in that way, where he is completely obsessed with her and wants everything to do with being with her. The only problem is she's married and is raising a kid with her husband. She kind of lets Charles in on the fact that the marriage isn't going that well. So Charles is kind of like trying to get his foot in the door and like encourage the breakup of this married couple, which lots of problems with that. He is very optimistically pursuing this relationship with her, and they do see each other in a romantic way, very much in a like don't tell the husband kind of setup. And he has this really chaotic relationship with his family. Like his mother is always like having a mental break. She has this routine, which we know is a routine at a certain point, where she attempts suicide and is like can be found in the bathtub wearing a negligee. Also, the mother, Clara, played by the great Gloria Graham, who's doing like an amazing unhinged performance. And I think all the negligees that she's wearing were from previous films that she was in. So there's a little Easter eggs in there for the Gloria Graham heads. So Charles and Laura do eventually kind of go head over heels for each other, but there's something off about Charles to Laura and to us. Like if you don't see any problems with Charles as someone watching this movie, I have a lot of questions for you and advice. It's a there's also a friend in the equation where Charles has a friend, Sam, played by Peter Reichert. And their friendship dynamic is really entertaining, funny, interesting. The whole movie is told in like this humorous lens, but it never like it never hesitates to like pull back the curtain and show you like how here's that word again, how malicious and just really self-centered and selfish some people can be when they really want someone and will do anything short of a few things for Charles's character. Like there's some things he wouldn't do, but the things that he says that he wants to do is incredibly upsetting. I think this film, having been adapted from a novel written by a woman, directed by a woman, produced by a woman, is the best way to look at this lens of let's say male obsession, male fragility, and all of the problems that come with just feeling so lonely that you could just and then fill in that blank. This has a great commentary track, which I think Criterion will also be porting over. I'm not sure.
Can look it
There's an isolated music track on this one. Music track, the soundtrack is great too. They had Toots Thielmans do his harmonica harp, and it's kind of like very bluesy, wistful, and it just really fits the visuals of like this uncaring winterscape in wherever they are. It looks like it's Chicago or something. I'm not exactly sure. There's really only just those extras on this, but from what I've seen on the upcoming 4K from Criterion, there's going to be quite a lot more. So I'm really intrigued to see what that is. I'm probably going to be one of the first in line to pick that up.
Nice.
And this is it doesn't say on here for the Twilight Time release, but it's possible that this could be a 2K digital master. I mean, if they don't specify on the back that it's a 4K restoration, and it's Twilight Time, so it's a little bit smaller of a label in terms of like resources that they have to remaster the elements. It has a nice little booklet in there. I don't know how available this is as of now, but if you're watching this and you've seen it and you love it, or you haven't seen it, honestly, wait for the Criterion. There's Gloria Graham right there in the bathtub. It's a nice little essay in here talking about the movie, and on the back they also have the poster of the version of the film that the studios wanted, because the ending of this is not very optimistic at all. Studios hated it. They wanted to sell it as like a romantic comedy because it is comedic and it involves romance, but based on what Charles does in this movie and having him get the girl at the end spoiler, does not work at all. And they marketed it as this, head over heels. It completely bombed. And then it was one of these things where they recut the film the way they wanted to, and it did so much better because of what happens in the film. So Chilly Scenes of Winter, it's gonna make you feel feelings. Not all of them good. John Hurd is fantastic in this. It's also produced and has a nice little cameo by Griffin Dunn. Anyone who's seen After Hours, you can kind of like put this in the same canon of After Hours because John Hurd also plays a little role in that too. Griffin Dunn's character is like this very shortly seen but very funny doctor, or like, yeah, I think Charles asks Griffin Dunn's character, like, can I get you a coffee or something like that? And like he has like this really, like, it seems like he's answered this question so many times, and it's like, I don't take performance enhancer, chemicals in my body.
Oh, Sue, if you put the sweater more like this, it's against the crevice, see?
Okay.
Cup of coffee before you go or anything?
I take no artificial stimulants.
Glass of milk?
Loaded with calcium for the day. Thank you.
We're gonna stop by Mom's later, so we'll probably get something there.
Some Hawaiian punch.
I'm sorry I can't accept your hospitality, Charles, but I do want to meet your mother and stepfather.
Okay.
We better skedaddle, okay?
I think we'll meet you outside in a second, okay?
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Do you like him?
It's one of the most incredible men I've ever met.
There's just like so much wit in this movie, just firing on all cylinders here, and I really can't recommend a movie that challenges the formula of like an unrequited, or not necessarily unrequited, but like incongruous love that just really goes into a bad place. So
Nice. I'm definitely going to be the odd person out. I have not seen that yet, but I will be sure to get the Criterion.
yes,
I might actually see if it's streaming on Criterion Channel. I mean, because if it is, I'll definitely try to watch that.
Yeah. I feel bad because I feel like I led you astray. I actually have not seen this movie.
you liar.
My excitement was for Joan Micklin Silver, which I saw that this movie was coming out, and I was unaware that it had previously been out on Blu-ray. But it's in the last year or so. We've talked about a couple of her titles on the Video Addict. We talked about, you covered Hester Street, Mike, and I covered A Fish in the Bathtub a couple months ago, and I loved both of those. So just like whenever Criterion announced this, I was like, yes. And then I saw you were covering this, and I was like, interesting. I'm really excited. So like,
oh yeah,
my
love those,
my fist pump was for Joan Micklin Silver.
Such a great director. I love her voice. And yeah, I really hope that they put at least this legacy commentary on the 4K of Chilly Scenes coming out later. I think all the details are on Criterion's website. I didn't look too closely at them because I know when I'm editing that video where one of you is covering the 4K of Chilly Scenes of Winter, I'm gonna hear it like over and over. So just looking forward to that and seeing if I can introduce that to my shelf here.
Yes.
Yeah, I looked it up. It doesn't look like it has the commentary track, but that might not necessarily be the case. It's just that's the information that Blu-ray.com has right now.
Yeah.
But fingers crossed that that's wrong and they do have the commentary.
Yeah, if not, I did look up the Twilight Time release, and it is still available. It's at a manageable, like $15 or $17. Also checking Blu-ray.com. So if you really want to check it out, or if you like that commentary track a lot, and it turns out the Criterion release doesn't have it, I'd get it. I mean, $15 for a commentary track isn't bad.
Yeah, for sure. That one's high on my wish list. Like I said, I'm sorry I misled you. I just love Joan so much, and just hearing her speak on those other two movies I just talked about, like the special features, like I'm pretty sure we recently lost her like in 2020, I think. But just hearing
Yeah.
her and her like in recent years, like as recent as like 2018, talking about her movies, she was so sharp and so insightful, and just like
Mhm.
I just loved learning about her. So I get so fired up about her. So I'm very excited
Yeah.
about this release.
Good.
She's so great. But moving on to my next title, once again, this isn't necessarily anti-romance, it's just non-traditional romance. And you'll see what I'm talking about. This is a new, I believe this is the first 4K from Lightyear Entertainment, and that is The Return of Swamp Thing.
Yes.
Yes, non-traditional romance. And okay, so I'll just show this off just a little bit more package-wise. So pretty standard slip cover, same look. You have the Blu-ray disc here and the 4K disc that kind of replicates the cover art. Single-sided artwork, no double-sided. So straightforward. I have to, okay, so I got this disc in, and I have not seen the original Swamp Thing, so I did what I like hate to do, which is watch movies out of order, which I'm pretty sure that is also coming to 4K later this year from NBD Entertainment. So it'll be interesting to go back and watch this. This is kind of like, it'll be like a weird prequel to me, but just watching this on its own merits, I had a fun time. Okay, it's really stupid, but it's a kind of good cheesy like dumb quality about it, which kind of is in line with like a lot of those kind of like 80s and 90s kind of like low budget but kind of still good action movies. But this just has the benefit of the main character being a Swamp Thing from DC before they actually like tried to start like legitimately doing their stuff. So in this tale, there is Swamp Thing, from what I gather from like clips from the first movie. There was a horrible accident that kind of mixed like this. There was a scientist who was working on like kind of a formula that does things, and he ended up getting
ecobiologist or something.
Yeah, he ended up like getting blown up, and then it mixed with the swamp, and now he's Swamp Thing. So that's pretty much what you need to know. And he seems to just kind of be guarding the swamp and like trying to not actively but like kind of passively take down this the villainous character who seems to be returning from the first movie, from what I gathered as well. He seems like he was probably close to death then, but he's back, so you get that character. But so in this particular iteration, you have Swamp Thing, you have Heather Locklear, who is kind of the stepdaughter of this villainous character who is coming back after years of not seeing him to kind of like reconnect with him and try to like kind of she's been going to like a psychic who tells her she has like unresolved issues with her stepfather that she needs to get right. So she ends up going to this and kind of gets swept up in this larger issue with her stepdad, who's like an evil man, who needs her DNA to like perfect this formula, because there's like a mad scientist underground cabal basically that's mixing animal DNA with humans, and there's like weird like hybrid like human animal creations that are really fucked up and interesting. I really love these special effects work in this. There's a lot of interesting like mutant effects that are really cool. And you have I believe, is Louis Jordan the Swamp Thing? Nope, that is Dr. Arcane. So you do have the dude who is playing Swamp Thing. He starts to have as Swamp Thing, he comes into contact with Heather Locklear's character, and they do kind of start having like a little bit of a romance, because she is, I believe she works at a flower shop, and she has like a very like an affection for flowers. And I love whenever, you know what type of movie this is, whenever they're like talking about like if they could ever be together or whatever, and he's like, but we can't be together. I'm a plant or whatever. And then she's like, I'm a vegetarian. And you're like, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So
Joke's
you
on
love,
you. I'm into that shit.
so you love that Heather Locklear had to like stoop to being in this kind of like creature feature superhero-ish genre picture where she gets to like almost kiss the Swamp Thing. They kind of cut away, but I just love like there's the action movie like main plot where like Swamp Thing is trying to take down this evil guy who is trying to like introduce all these evil like mutant hybrids into things. But then you also have this romance, and then you also have, I love these like hillbilly kids who are like going through the swamp and trying to capture Swamp Thing because they think they're going to be able to sell this like the footage for like loads of money. But you have like this, especially like there, it's like a white kid and a black kid. The white kid, he is especially like very Southern in a specific, and I'm Southern, so I can say this. He's very Southern in a specific way, and he's always like eating like, he has like a backpack full of like treats and like ho-hos and stuff like that he's always like getting into. They're the most ridiculous, seemingly like why are these characters in here, but it's like great comedic relief. You love to see it. So this movie's just like really cheesy, dumb fun. It's from the director of Chopping Mall, which is, that's the, I would definitely would have butchered the last name, so I appreciate that. Who does have a commentary track, I believe. Yeah. So it's him, composer Chuck Cyrano, and editor Leslie Rosenthal. That was recorded in 2018, which this was previously released on the MVD Rewind collection. It's now a 4K. This is from a 4K scan, 4K restoration of the Inner Positive. This is in Dolby Vision. I've talked about a few 4K debuts from different labels in recent months. Like there was Full Moon Features. There's another one that kind of like shit the bed. I'm proud to report like this one does it's a pretty solid 4K debut, and like nothing seems to like, there seems to be a pretty solid encode. The restoration is nice. You don't get even a lot of like nicks and scratches. It has really nice vibrant colors from the Dolby Vision. I've never seen this film before. This is my first time, but like it looks really solid for like a smaller label trying to get into the 4K game. I think Lightyear Entertainment did a really nice job, and they do port over a lot of special features, and there's even new special features. There's a Riff Tracks music video. There's not the full Riff Tracks, but there's a music video that's included. There's also a new interview with producer Michael Uslin called Reflections of the Swamp Thing 35 years later. So that's a pretty solid interview as well. And then you have like, I think all the special features that are probably on the Rewind collection. So there's tons of interviews there with the director. There's promotional TV clips, TV spots, public service announcement from Greenpeace. That's fun. So lots of, yeah. This is a fun discovery. I think I was reading that a lot of people do not like this movie, but as someone just going in cold, I think it's a lot of like cheesy fun. I'm interested to check out the first movie, and so yeah, a decent addition to the collection if you're a fan. I think it's a really solid release.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, one of the things I really enjoyed about the first Swamp Thing is that like it's one of those movies that obviously was shot in color, but you could change your TV settings to black and white, and it really works. It works on the monster movie aspect, it works on the romance aspect, and I wonder if Return to Swamp Thing you can do that too. Although the action scenes might not be as interesting or exciting, perhaps. And this is just like changing your TV settings, so it's not actually color grading it for monochrome.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a good little approximation. So
I'd be open to it, just tinkering a little bit and seeing what happens.
Turn the dials on your flat screen TV to turn the saturation down, and like when you finally get around to watching the first Swamp Thing, starring my boy Ray Wise as Alec Holland in the first 15-ish minutes. I don't know. Maybe try watching in black and white for the first time and see what you think.
Wow, that's a bold choice. Maybe I'll have
Bold,
to do
yeah.
I have not seen the sequel to Swamp Thing. I've seen the first film probably more than a few times. You know, if you're a Wes Craven sort of completist, it's kind of wild to think that he directed the first Swamp Thing movie, but he
Yeah.
did. Not what he considers a high point in his career, but I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I need to do that. I need to try to watch it in black and white. That sounds pretty awesome.
It's really interesting. It's like I was on that kick for a little bit. I think one of the first ones that I watched in black and white was the Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, which works really well in black and white. It kind of like I know the Blob isn't in black and white, but that one would also work too. Like the whole first part when Jason comes back to life and we're being warned, you know, through the Tommy Jarvis character by the police, like, hey, there's this monster on the loose, and they're like, yeah, whatever. It's giving a lot of Blob vibes there, and like, I don't know, putting it in black and white works really well. Tom McLaughlin actually talked about how he wanted to do it in black and white, but the studio Paramount was like, no, this is Friday the 13th, we don't do that. But that tangent alone, like there's some interesting films that you could probably just like look at through, you know, just like the crude way of turning your color off on your various TV settings and just see if you get like some new experience out of it.
Yeah, that's pretty neat, especially with the Friday the 13th 6, which is my favorite. I got to talk to Tom. We talked about ghosts for a little bit, which was pretty fun. Just a little aside, but yeah, so I'm kind of getting into more obscure stuff now. So like my last two titles are going to be things that are maybe not on people's radar, but definitely should be. This is the one and only movie that I don't have a Blu-ray because I believe to date there's not a at least American Blu-ray release. I believe there might be some international ones, but that is for the Hammer film, which is only one of two movies that Hammer did with Betty Davis, and that is The Anniversary.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this is a nice release. So this is like old school Anchor Bay. We do have a commentary track. We have some like interviews. This is the inside. I mean, Anchor Bay is so nostalgic for me. I really love them, and of course you have a little thing here. But yeah, so this movie's pretty wild. This definitely I would consider this maybe more like a Mother's Day kind of movie, but it certainly definitely fits with the theme of like love, devotion, obsession, maybe being a little too clingy with loved ones, or not enough. So this movie is about three sons who work at a family construction business. Betty Davis plays the like head of the family, head of the business, and she does this kind of weird tradition of celebrating the anniversary of her husband's passing with this big kind of together where they get the sons together with the wives. The one son has a girlfriend, and it's basically like Betty Davis like pushing this girlfriend to her limits, and it becomes this sort of like verbal chess game of bitchery and like, oh my god, I love it so much. Have y'all seen this yet?
I have not, and you've already sold me on this. I mean, like Betty Davis is enough to sell anyone on a movie, but Betty
Yeah.
Davis, Hammer film, bitchiness.
I mean, yeah, look at this. I mean, doesn't that make you want to see it? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the marketing right there.
It looks very almost like glamorous or, you know, hoity-toity in a way, which I'm sure is some kind of like subversive marketing on the film's strengths there.
Yeah, and I was gonna say this isn't like what we would consider like hagsploitation, maybe in the traditional sense. It's not really a horror movie. Although it kind of, I mean, it's not a horror.
Psychological thriller, maybe.
There's shades of that. I don't know
Yeah.
if it fully commits to that, but it definitely is this sort of battle of wills, and that there's some really like messed up stuff with within the family that all the skeletons are coming out, and it's amazing. And she also has you can see it here, she has a red eye patch that she changes into
Styling.
Nice.
because it matches her outfit. I mean,
Yeah.
that's yeah, why wouldn't you have a eye patch for every outfit? Gosh, I know I would, but yeah, it's a fun movie. Now I will say there are things about it that I kind of don't love. There's a character who he's, I guess, coded as maybe um developmentally disabled. A little bit. It's not like grotesquely done, but he likes to wear women's clothing, which is fine, but they sort of make a little bit of a joke out of it. They don't go to like an extreme with it, which is good, but it's cringy. But it doesn't really overwhelm the film, and it's still really enjoyable because I mean it's bitchy Betty Davis movie with by Hammer, and like the making of this is kind of amazing. This is a commentary. You were talking about commentary tracks that are really awesome. This is a good one too. Roy Ward Baker kind of talks about working with Betty and how she had the original director fired to replace, and had him replaced basically with the director that we got, Roy Ward Baker, and yeah, it was like very over the top and dramatic, the making of the film. And yeah, this is one that I really, really hope gets a wider US release because I think it's fun. I don't think it's flawless by any means, but like I said, there's two Hammer films that she did. The other one's called The Nanny, not to be mistaken for the Fran Drescher series, but The Nanny is also another one that is fire. That one is firmly psychological horror.
Yeah. That one I've seen because we did talk about that on going back to Humanoids from the Deep Dive.
Yes.
Even though there's no monsters in it, but it was good enough to talk about anyway.
Yeah. I mean, she's kind of a monster, a sympathetic one in that.
Yeah.
Without spoiling it. But yeah, I highly recommend any way you can see this. So this is also like a Fox Co production. So that might be, because that's technically Disney now. So we'll see. They've been playing ball with labels, licensing stuff out. So hopefully we'll see that soon. But yeah, it's just one of my favorite sort of guilty pleasures. Yeah, it's just, it has everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to probably move that up. Maybe I might even just like program myself a little Valentine's Day
Nice
night and see where that takes me.
I wanted to just say that plot, what I was looking up is I didn't want to get the name of this movie wrong, but it was like a year ago. I've covered a movie that was very similar in plot from Kino Classics. It's a pre-code movie called Double Door, which is about like a woman, like an older stern woman who like her son or something brings home his new bride, and she starts to torture her and like ends up like locking her like in this secret room and stuff. So it's like, it kind of reminded me, like it had shades of that to me. So if you're interested in pre-code dramas and you want to do a double feature, that might be a fun one. Double Door for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good one. I haven't seen that one in a while, but yeah, I can definitely see where it sort of has like some parallel thoughts or like storylines. But yeah, I guess that's I and also like besides Davis, like this just is so well acted. the one actor is in a really great cult movie, New York Ripper.
That's a good one.
So, yeah. Which, you know, I was like thinking like I wish that that had like some semblance of like romance or something that I could have like covered that because I could always talk about that one.
Fulci doesn't really do romance. He does like animalistic lust, and then like just skips from there into like horrible, mutilating killings.
Yeah.
Unless you have like some sort of amorous relationship with Daffy Duck, which there is a very it's very generous in the Daffy Duck phone sex. So, you know.
All right. All right, Dillon. Dillon, you did Mickey Mouse. Can you do Daffy Duck?
Nope.
Okay.
It's like not even an attempt.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna take us down to a certain avenue in film that is probably one of the most ultimate examples of anti-romance. So ultimate, so extreme. I mean, it's not really that extreme of a movie. I might be playing it up a little bit too much, but where the director had pushed these two actors to their breaking point, like in the making of the film. Like they just were broken by the time they were done with this. And it's a Polish director who was shooting a movie in France, I think. He had been basically exiled from Poland. He got like the Ministry of Film fired for one of his movies, and upon the finishing of one of his other films in Poland, another minister of like cinematography or arts, fine arts, whatever, you know, socialist Poland, that reviews all these movies before they can be like stamped with approval, tried to get his crew to conspire against him and like falsify these accounts that he was being so like overbearing and like abusing his power and just being a tyrant on set, when that was absolutely not the case, which led to a film just sitting in a hallway for 10 years. And that film, I believe, that sat in the hallway for 10 years, unprotected, unchecked, to the elements, basically. It's a little movie called Possession. Now, this is notorious, and I don't know if YouTube is gonna be mad at us because the cover is very titillating, but it's the story of a very messy divorce, and it follows this guy Mark, who is like a very secretive, well, he's a secret agent. Let's just put it, let's get that out of the way. He's a secret agent, espionage type, and he learns that his wife Anna, played by Isabella Gianni, is sort of like drifting apart from him. He's getting restless in what he thought was a happy marriage. And they have a child together, and the kid is sort of like caught in the middle of all this. He's like at this very young age that doesn't quite get what's going on, so he's kind of being pulled back and forth between like the father and the mother. And when Mark, played by Sam Neill in one of his earlier roles, he gets home from this business trip and learns that his wife wants a divorce, and he doesn't get it. He doesn't know why she would want this, and like is very obsessed with this idea of like, what is it about our relationship together that like you want to end things? And he keeps like pressing her, drilling her, and like relentlessly interrogating her reasoning for this. And she is just like getting increasingly stressed out about not only Mark's treatment of it, but just her exit strategy, as it were, of like, how do I get away from this person? I just really don't want to be in this situation anymore. And it's the movie is very relentless in like putting you in those difficult situations where they're totally fine, one moment in a scene, and then things just like take a turn, and then you're stuck with them in this like horrible argument, and like you feel like anything can happen. You feel like some violence could break out at any second, and it feels very unsafe. So Mark uses their son Bob as like a gauge, like a chip to like either bargain with or just use as a tool to convince her not to leave. Like, who's going to raise this kid? He's going to have developmental problems. And she says that she doesn't want the divorce because of someone else, but that Mark finds out that Anna indeed does have another lover, and it's been seeing him in secret. So Mark goes to pick his son up from school one day and discovers that there's a teacher who looks exactly like Anna. So you get a little bit of an echo of Vertigo here, with doubles, and there's another aspect of doubles that is revealed much later on in the film, which I won't spoil. But when Mark is sort of like following Anna to figure out where this person lives, who she's seeing on the side, he discovers something completely unexpected. And that kind of goes to a little bit of what is on the cover of the film. For I'll risk showing it again in case it gets taken down. So there's a lot of visual cues and clues as to what that might be. I'll say as much as visual effects and creature effects were done by Carlo Rambaldi, who did a phenomenal job on this. And it's very unsettling for some, arousing for others. Who knows? So the relationship with this teacher who looks just like Anna, Helen, kind of takes the pressure off the obsession that Mark has with why Anna wants to leave, what's going on, how do I fix this? But Anna has like this other obsession that she kind of like trades off with Mark and picks up where Mark drops most of the weight of, and she is so driven to get to this other stage that all hell kind of breaks loose. And like the final segment of this film is a great chase sequence. It's a great, like, you could put it into an action espionage film and it would be like one of the best set pieces. There's a really dizzying sequence with like a spiral staircase of sorts. And honestly, like, if you don't see any of the movies that I've recommended for like the purpose of watching it to stick it to Hallmark for Valentine's Day, Possession should be the one, which is great because Possession has for such a long time been extremely hard to find. But now, if you don't have a Blu-ray or can buy the Blu-ray in time, it's streaming on Shudder. So what a world we live in, where you can just watch a movie like this on Shudder and just go about your day. This release specifically is the Umbrella Films Blu-ray. It's just a single disc, but the transfer looks great. It's far from like those DVDs that had only like the US version, which is like a TV movie version, which, by the way, this release does have the US TV movie version. So if that's how you first saw Possession, also not the way to see it, but it's a nice little curio because they completely screw up the movie. It's on there. There's so many features on background of the director. There's a featurette with the composer who talks quite a bit about how Andrei Zuwowski, that's how you pronounce his name, Zuwowski, is how he works, how he thinks, because they grew up together and there's a whole backstory to it. There's even a poster analysis featurette by like a Polish film poster expert. They do exist. Some really interesting stuff. Like it goes into art history. It's very if you've ever liked looking at posters, which I'm sure most people do, it's very enlightening and has a lot to say about like the Polish art movement that was going around like in the late 70s, 80s, even some 90s. And yeah, there are two separate commentary tracks, both absolutely worth going through. And I believe I don't know if this is a 2K restoration specifically. It doesn't say on the back, and this this box doesn't exactly say, but whoops, there's a kind of like, you know, the special features down here do kind of like illustrate some of the most of that stuff, but it doesn't say anything on the restoration quality. But I mean, Possession in its original form on Blu-ray, what more can I say? This is not exactly something I would recommend blind buying if you're not really sure if you would be into it. So while it's on Shudder, take that opportunity, watch it, see what you think. And if you want to know more, I recommend the Umbrella release, although it did get a more recent release lately. I don't know what the specs are on, if it was a different restoration or scam, or what kind of offerings they had for special features. But honestly, any Blu-ray release is highly recommended for me. So ultimate feel bad anti-romance. I'm sure John Waters loves this movie. I know I did. So yeah, Possession, just
Nice.
so good.
So I have a question about that release actually. Is it region locked? Is it region free?
It is region 0.
Oh, okay, cool.
Umbrella does like to do some region B specific releases. Well, they don't like to, they have to because of like contractual obligations, but this one is one specifically released or region all. So
Nice.
if you don't have a region free Blu-ray player, don't worry, because this one is very safe for your United States issued Blu-ray player.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's that is one that I'm actually saving to see on Valentine's Day for the first time on Shudder. So
There you go.
I've heard so many really good things. Like I know there's like the tunnel scene that's pretty famous where she like flips out, and like the acting seems like beyond amazing. So
the lengths that Zuofsky went to just to put his actors through hell. I mean, I feel like at some point, like you kind of stop thinking about the characters and you're just like, I'm really worried for Sam Neill in this scene. Like, are you doing okay, man?
He's got that Jurassic Park money. It's fine.
That's true. This is one that my best friend and best man at my wedding has been like pressuring me to watch like in the last couple years or so, and I haven't had access to it, but I guess this will be time for me to like sit down with Shudder, finally watch it. I was hoping like it would just come into my life via like, fingers crossed, like a 4K release or something, and I was just like hoping it would appear. It has not yet, but I guess I need to make an effort now.
I feel like a 4K is possible on the horizon, but since it got a recent Blu-ray US release, it might not be for a while. So you might have to be waiting on that for a little bit. But if you like the movie a lot, if you love it, I would recommend getting it in some form, because like the wealth of extras on the Umbrella release is like really something. I don't know if the newer one has any of those these specific extras ported over, but it'd be worth comparing, you know, on the distributors' websites or Blu-ray.com, and just see what there is on there.
Awesome. All right. Yes, fine. I'll check it out. Between you and my friend, I'll all sides are coming at me. I'll
Yeah.
get to it. My final title, I feel I wanted to be like kindred spirits with the both of you. Like you talked about Leave Her to Heaven. You talked about Double Indemnity. I want to do my own kind of like film noir, but what you were just talking about with Possession, this also kind of moves into my final title as well. So it's a little bit of all of them. This is from Kino Classics. It is from Francois Truffaut. It is
It's a very
Mississippi
curt
Mermaid.
pronunciation.
Thank you. I've been building up the whole time. Mississippi Mermaid with Jean-Paul Belmondo and Catherine Deneuve. So I actually, anyone who watches our show regularly will know I often do this, but this is one of the instances where I owned this previously and I had just never gotten to it, but now there's a new release and it made me get to it faster. This was previously released on Twilight Time, and since they were like seemingly going out of business for a while, I picked this up and I just never got around to it. But here's
Nice
the
reverse
alternative.
art.
Yes, reverse art. So Kino has treated this one nicely in that regard. I've been trying to catch up on my Truffaut blind spots, and so I sat down with this one last night, and I really enjoyed this one quite a bit. This one, it's interesting. Jean-Paul Belmondo, he plays another factory owner. Interesting contrast to the Bliss of Mrs. Blossom. So that he plays a factory owner. I believe they manufacture cigarettes, and he's kind of lonely. He's in the beginning is kind of like a kind of montage of like personal ads that have been put in papers of just people looking for love. So what you kind of learn is he's like kind of looking for a mail order bride. And he like they've been exchanging letters for a while, and then one day on a cruise ship, whenever she's supposed to come over, Catherine Deneuve shows up, and she's not exactly what he's expecting. She's a bombshell first and foremost. Like she is just a drop dead gorgeous woman, but also she doesn't really have kind of like the essence of the person he thought he was corresponding with, and it kind of seems like she's almost too good to be true. Just like, oh, how did this like amazing like top 10 gorgeous women like come into my life, and like how did I find myself so lucky? But they get married pretty much right away because she's a mail order bride. But you quickly learn that things are slightly off. Like there are certain things that like he picks up on, or in the midst of his lust, he notices this, but he doesn't take like into a real account. Like she takes coffee and he's like, oh, I thought you preferred tea, and she's like, oh no, I like coffee. Like you said in your letters you like this. So there's kind of like that little mystery that continues to brew for like the first 20 or 30 minutes. And this isn't like a real spoiler, but you do learn that she is not exactly who she says she is. And after like getting like involved with him and like getting basically access to all of his accounts, robs him blind, and like kind of absconds with all of his money. But from there is where you get the rest of the movie, and I won't kind of reveal all the twists and turns, but it's basically what this film is it's about obsession and what kind of like love drives you to believe and like think about other people, and whether you can like accept certain things about different people and all that type of like it's a love, but it's like an obsessive love, which isn't healthy for anyone. Just what I really love about this movie, and I think I read that this was remade in like the early 2000s as the film Original Sin with Antonio Banderas and Angelina Jolie. I have not seen that, but I read that on IMDb, and that's as far as my research went. But what I really like about this is like the two of these, Jean-Paul Belmondo and Catherine Deneuve, they have like such palpable chemistry on screen, as only the French can. And just whenever they are in a scene together, whether like you know that there is either an intense love or an intense hatred, depending on the scene. Like whether like they could be like the most in love they've ever been with someone, or they could just like want to kill each other, and just like their dynamics throughout is like so palpable. And I just love how it kind of evolves throughout this 2-hour runtime basically. Just a touch over 2 hour, 2 hour and 3 minutes. And there's a lot of really, there's film noirish elements, but there's also, it's more of like in a European flavor, because it says Truffaut. So it's like not the traditional like American noir. And I just really love how this kind of builds and like deteriorates, and just like it's a really nice character study of, like I said, obsession. And so if you're a Truffaut fan, if you're a fan of either of these two performers, it's a really well acted, performed drama. This release, from what I can tell, like I said, the Twilight Time is out of print now. I think they just use the existing scan, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it's a really nice scan as it is. There's still a few nicks and scratches here and there, especially like in some of kind of like the establishing shots, or like shots that weren't like first generation. Like you can probably tell they used recycled footage or something. But whenever you're getting to like the main like new like newly shot footage, it looks really nice and pretty crisp. Like no real softness or like compression artifacts or anything like that. So they did a really nice job. This does come with a commentary track from Julie Kurgo and Nick Redman, Nick Redman was the owner of the Twilight Time label. So I assume that's just ported over from the Twilight Time release before his untimely passing. He was a great advocate for physical media, and also has a assortment of trailers. So I think basically this is for people who missed out on Twilight Time. I don't think it really adds anything substantial otherwise. You do get a slipcover, as I saw, and double-sided artwork. So mainly, this is just a really solid Truffaut film that if you do not have it in your collection, it's a lot of fun. But if you own the Twilight Time, maybe it's not worth it. But I think it's a really solid release, and I'm glad it finally made me watch it. And I realized there's a ton of good movies on my shelf I just haven't taken time to watch. So that's on me. But this is recommended for those who kind of like that dynamic we've been talking about this whole episode of just like love but a little fucked up. So highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
I haven't seen that one, but definitely it is high on my list. I definitely want to check it out.
Yeah, me either. And I love Catherine Deneuve. It's like that's one of Truffaut's like later movies, right? Was it the 70s?
69.
Oh, okay. So almost 70s. Yeah, that sounds really intriguing. That might be one of the ones that I pick for this Tuesday, this Valentine's Day,
Nice.
as a reminder to get your flowers and chocolate and whatever. Or don't. I don't care.
Yeah. So now my last title, I love the movie. I have a really cool little behind the scenes story to tell with it as well, which is kind of cool. So my final film is like easily the most messed up film that I have, and then it's Frank Henenlotter's Bad Biology. Now, have y'all seen this?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, so here's the back, and I mean, as far as like things we can't show you, I mean, the back's pretty provocative. But yeah, so I want to first say I'm gonna link all the like where you can like buy most of these or like all of these films. Unfortunately, this is out of print right now. I know you can get a I think pretty decently priced maybe DVD of it, or I think like a Blu-ray's maybe $30-ish on eBay right now. But yeah, so here is the inside. So yeah, this movie is about two people, like they both have monstrous genitalia. Is like the easiest way to put that. The bluntest way to put that. And they meet, and crazy stuff happens, as you might consider. So this movie is very weird, very messy in all regards. This came at a time where Frank had not made a film since Basket Case 3 in 1991. So this was kind of his triumphant return to films. It was kind of cool because when Basket Case was having its anniversary release, I got to interview Frank, and then we stayed in touch. We would stay in touch over the phone. I actually got to meet him, which was really cool. We got to hang out in his apartment in New York. But my fun story is I don't know. I don't think this is a spoiler, but there is a monster phallus in this movie, shall we say. And so we were hanging out, and I noticed that there's this giant dick on an RC car. And that's, from the movie. Like it was just an RC car with a giant dick, as you do, as you have around your house. But it was kind of cool to see that. And he had some other props. There's a really cool medical bag that was like an actual like vintage doctor's bag that he uses in this. He had some like prop people make some really cool steampunky kind of medical devices, which are awesome. But yeah, this movie definitely is like the most twisted form of love. It's these two people that are so alienated by how like monstrous their junk are. I don't I don't know how else to put it. It's really this, I mean, it's disturbing, but the thing about Frank's movie is there's always like a not mean spirit about it. Anyone that's seen like Basket Case and like Brain Damage and Frankenhooker, they're all silly. They're almost like almost like cartoons in a way. This one is probably maybe his most like dark film. Like it definitely goes to like some upsetting places, but he always has that kind of playful humor that I think keeps it from getting a little bit too like grueling or bleak. So yeah, I keep asking Frank if he's ever going to do another Basket Case movie or something like that. I know like he says he's had so many offers for people to like remake that movie in some form or another, but I just like think this is a really fun movie. And when I was thinking of like really good like bad romance movies, like this is like instantly what kind of came to mind. So yeah, if you can find it, if it's streaming somewhere, I mean, I definitely recommend it. I think I recommend it if you kind of like Henenlotter's stuff. It reminds me of like Henenlotter, but it also kind of reminds me of like we were talking about Brian Usna. It reminds me of like Society-esque kind of over the top, grotesque, goopy, splattery goodness.
Yeah, I might cap off my Valentine's Day viewing with that at the
Nice.
as the third film in the trilogy.
Yeah.
For those who might not be able to find a copy on this Blu-ray release very easily, since I brought up Scarecrow, I'm going to do it again. But I'm also going to put out there that they do have a rental by mail program. So if they deliver to your state, you can check on their website, and you might actually be able to rent this copy of Bad Biology. It won't be in time for Valentine's Day, but there's something about, there's a joke in here somewhere about like monster genitalia and being a latecomer to something.
Yeah. And I kind of purposely kept stuff vague because there is like some really cool like things that they do with the premise that I really don't want to spoil. And I also have to mention that this is like one of the, not one of the last, but I believe this is the last movie that Frank and Beverly Bonner worked on together. And she was a legendary stage actor. She worked with Divine, actually, bringing this full circle. She did a play with Divine where I think it was like a women in prison homage, and you know, she played one of the wardens. Anyone that's ever seen any women in prison movies, you get the gist. But yeah, and she unfortunately passed away, and was really cool. She was somebody that I also got to keep in touch with. Oh, gosh, one of the nicest people. I mean, Frank too. He's like one of the coolest people. Zero ego. I mean, I think has every right to have ego, but he doesn't. He's one of the sweetest, most down to earth person you'd ever want to meet. So, anyways, that's my rambling. Check it out.
Did you say what label originally put that out?
Oh, so this was Shriek. What is that? Shriek's show, which is that the? I think that's the label.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like trying to think if that was like. Oh no, Media Blasters, right? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, gosh, Media Blasters. That's another like label that's kind of taken me back. But yeah, this is like their sub label.
Okay.
So yeah, and again, I think you like if you're Henenlotter completist, I did sleuth a little bit, and you can find a DVD that's like in a pretty good price range. And I'm hoping it gets re-released. I don't know what's going on with I think Media Blasters still is kind of a thing. I don't know if y'all know that or
I haven't heard anything about them recently.
yeah.
Are they still around?
Well, so I for a book of mine, I had actually interviewed the one of the founders, and he assured me that they're still like going, but that was a few years ago. So
Okay.
I don't know, but it currently is out of print, like I said, but I will link where you can maybe rent that from Scarecrow Video, which is awesome. And yeah. So before we wrap it up, any final thoughts on any of the movies we talked about, or anything you kind of want to interject before we head off?
I'm
I
impressed
just
that all of our
go
stuff
ahead.
just kind of like melded into each other so nicely.
Mhm.
So good job, guys. That's my final thought.
My final thought, I have two real quick. One is regarding Media Blasters. If I'm not mistaken, I think that they released some Takashi Miike films last year. I
Okay.
could be wrong about that, but I think
Yeah.
they did, unless I'm mixing them up with like Discotheque or something. My second final thought is it is so great to have you here, Andre. Like, I'm glad to just like get your perspective on things, and you brought a lot of really fun movies. And like Mike and I, we always talk. Like, we're getting like I'm sure they're sick of me, so it's good
No.
to have you here to just like bounce
Yeah.
off with us. And like, I had a really good time with you here, so thank you for joining us.
Well, the feeling's mutual. So always willing to jump on for anything. I do want to hear your thoughts on Polyester. So
Okay.
we should do that
Okay.
that group message thing for your honest and unbridled reactions to John Waters trying to make you feel bad, because at some point you're gonna get to Desperate Living, and I really want to know your thoughts on that, because
Yeah.
along with Mike, it is also my favorite John Waters movie, and there's nothing comes close to that, man. It's just
Okay.
So I'm gonna pitch something right now. I don't know, it might be a little bit harder to do, but I think we should do a Mother's Day thing and get our, respective mothers or stepmothers or whoever to like join in. I think that would be.
Oh, you don't want my mom on here. You don't want her on here.
But I mean, regardless, I feel like we should do like a Mother's Day thing with that would be like a perfect excuse to table that.
I've already got
Well-
like 3 or 4 titles just popped into my head right when you said that.
Well,
I
my
mean-
mom's an avid viewer, so now we have to do it because she'll feel offended if we don't invite her.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how my mom would be. Like, she's really adorable and sweet, but I think she might be kind of shy. So I don't know. But yeah, we'll table that. We'll figure something out. But I really appreciate y'all. Andre, thank you so much for coming out. This is was really fun. Like I said, if you want to know who edits our videos and makes them awesome, makes them really like flow well, here they are.
Make fun of me, like yeah.
And yeah, as far as like other final thoughts, I just think that this was a really fun time. This was a great group of movies. I love how diverse everything was. A little something for everybody, you know.
Mhm.
Noirs, monster genital movies, and everything in between.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do the obligatory, definitely give this video a like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And as always, thanks for hanging out with us.